Hey, how we doing, guys? Happy Thursday, and it is time, as Papa Geek says. All right, all right, all right. Hey, everybody! This is the monthly exclusive Patreon Q&A. This is something we do live, and so that everybody can benefit. But in order to ask and get questions, there is a $20 or higher tier, and if you are in that tier, then you get to ask me any question you like and I will answer it to the best of my possible capability. Now, the difference between doing that and emailing me or sending me a direct message or a lot of the other ways that people ask me questions is that you have to understand in a single day, I get at least 20 to 30 questions, kind of just all from different directions. And if you've reached out to me, a lot of times what I've had to do is I've had to say, hey, I'm sorry, I don't have time to answer that. I'll try to give you a brief, like a quick answer, but I usually can't give a very in-depth answer. So what we're going to be, when you join the Patreon club, you have the option to join the tier that gives you access to, it's pretty full access. You get access to all of the 90 plus. We're almost to 100 guided sessions, and these are all different. All of them are guided sessions of breath work that use different techniques for different outcomes. And we've been accumulating these sessions since 2020. So we're working on our third year now. Wow, what an awesome tribe. And so, yeah, we've got almost 100 guided sessions. The only place you will ever find my complete catalog will be in this Patreon club, unless something changes. And in that case, the people who are in the tribe will get first dibs at wherever I move it to. But ultimately, the Patreon club offers you access to all of my guided sessions using all these different techniques that I've acquired over the years, including my own breathwork style, the language of breath. And really, that's where all of this has been coalescing. If you've been with me since the beginning, you have witnessed the birth of the language of breath. You have seen my breath work expand from the very complete knowledge that I put into my first book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, and grow into what we now call the language of breath. If you're in the breath club, up until just recently, you had access to a huge discount on the language of breath online course. And guess what? Tonight, I'm going to put another discount. So if you are in the breath club, you'll get $50 off if you sign up for the Language of Breath online course. If you're not familiar with the Language of Breath, go to languageofbreathcollective.com. We are a collective of breath workers that follow basic guidelines and a philosophy in which I founded called the Language of Breath. Basically, the truth is that the mind-body paradigm puts us in a strange position. We don't see ourselves the way we should. And in reality, we are all one thing. Mind and body, it's all one thing. It's just we experience this differently. And we have a conscious experience, we have an unconscious experience. And it's something that we oftentimes are completely disconnected from who we are, what we are. And as a result, we suffer. As a result, we have health concerns, we have emotional distress, we are disconnected from our own thoughts and desires, and sometimes we start to feel like these emotions are coming from outside of us, from a terrible place. And the reality is, my friends, that they're not. And when we learn the language of breath, we're not just learning breath techniques for whatever. It's not like, oh, what's good for a sore tooth? Oh yeah, we'll just do that. It's not just inputting code into your robot so that the robot's going to do this other thing. You are not a robot. You are a relationship. You're a relationship within yourself, and you're a relationship with the world around you. And this is all ultimately messages. This is all communication and language. And so when you take the online course, the Language of Breath online course, you get the foundation of the language of breath philosophy, and you start to learn how to hear the subtle voice of your unconscious self, and you can start to speak back as well. So it's all based in science and the years of experience that I've had training people to live a better life. So go to languageofbreathcollective.com to learn more. Also, if you'd like to train to be a breath worker with me, train directly under me, join the Language of Breath Collective and learn to be a breath worker. I don't even like to use the word instructor. So we don't even call anybody instructors. I certify breath workers because I don't want you to just be an automaton. I want you to think for yourself and be yourself. Yes, there's a overarching philosophy of Language of Breath, but you get to be who you are, and you're not going to have me always saying, nope, you have to say it exactly like this. So anyway, that's at languageofbreathcollective.com. Check us out, get on our subscribing list. Today, we have a lot of questions. So I'm excited to get to them. I'm going to take a quick sip of my mud water. So real quick, Mudwater, they have been featuring me in their blog, Trends with Benefits. And excuse me, I do not have a sponsorship deal or anything with them. They've just been putting me in their blog. So I was like, I've never tried this. They said, hey, you're really in alignment with our brand and we really like what you do. And they first interviewed me for cold exposure to talk about cold exposure. And then they interviewed me to talk about breath work. And so I've been I've been featured in, I think, 3 or 4 of their articles now. So I'm like, yeah, I got to try this stuff. And man, I am enjoying Mudwater. So I don't have any affiliation other than the fact that I enjoy their stuff, and apparently they enjoy mine. So cheers. Okay. So let's get down to the questions. We've got quite a few questions. Hey, good to see you, Brandon. Nice to have you here, Dana. And hello, everybody around the world. We've got a really awesome tribe. This month, is a great check-in that we did. We've got people from all over the country of the United States, but all over the world. We've got people from all over the globe, from pretty much every continent. And it's really an awesome crew. So today I had two. I've got two kind of late questions that I didn't get a whole lot of time to answer, but the good thing is these are fantastic questions, very, very good questions that I've got great answers for here for you guys. The first question we're going to talk about is about the right time of day to do the controlled CO2 pause. So some of you guys may be familiar with Buteyko method. If you haven't seen my video on Buteyko method, check out the video that I have. I believe it's on my landing page about Buteyko and the Buteyko method. Ultimately, Buteyko, he realized that many of our illnesses come from overbreathing. And what he was able to do is he was able to come up with some protocols early on in his career that seemed to cure people of asthma and many other disorders. And this it's proliferated into all sorts of different CO2 tolerance techniques, some of which you can get, from different schools of thought. But that's kind of where it started, Buteyko. Well, there is a way of testing your CO2 tolerance. CO2 tolerance is very difficult to test. It's somewhat of a subjective test because ultimately CO2 is the thing that makes you feel the urge to breathe. And so when you are testing your CO2 tolerance, you are testing ultimately how much CO2 that you can comfortably allow to build up in your bloodstream before you have to take that next breath. And basically what that means is you've got a brainstem that's constantly observing how much CO2 is in your system. So if you're trying to do long breath holds, sometimes people say, I want to do a really long breath hold. The higher your CO2 tolerance, the better times you're going to get. But in real life, in everyday life, people who have a higher CO2 tolerance tend to be able to be more resilient against all stressors. So that's any stressor that you have, they tend to be more resilient. On top of that, typically we see CO2 tolerance being an incredible booster to athletic performance. So if you have a high CO2 tolerance, you tend to be cool, calm, and collected, and you tend to be able to perform at a high level for longer than the average person in any kind of physical or athletic pursuits. So it is to everyone's benefit to have a high CO2 tolerance. If you were asking me how high should my CO2 tolerance be, I would show you the picture of Snoop Dogg, right? That's how high. But ultimately, we want a high CO2 tolerance. Well, okay, so how do we know how to test our CO2 tolerance? Now, if you pick up my book, A Practical Guide to Breath Work, or if you take the online course, The Language of Breath, I show you how to test your CO2 tolerance. But there are different ways to test that. One of the earliest ways was the Buteyko controlled pause technique. Ultimately, if you'd like to do that, all you need to do is breathe normally for a little while, especially, stop talking, sit still, and just breathe normally. And then take 2 normal breaths. Okay. So if you've already been taking normal breaths, you don't have to add 2 more. But generally, we want to make sure you've taken 2 normal breaths. And then after that second breath, you exhale and you don't breathe in again until you can't hold your breath any longer. And the thing is, it's not. I guess I said it wrong. Let me rephrase that. You take 2 breaths, you hold your breath until you feel the urge to breathe, that strong urge to breathe. And it's not a strong, oh my God, it's can I relax? How long can I relax? Because when I take that next breath, it cannot be a gasp. It's not supposed to be anything other than a normal breath. And you should be able to go back about your normal breathing rather quickly. So if you want to try it, you can try it. So you take 2 inhales and then you just hold your breath on a neutral lung until you feel the strong urge to breathe. Once you feel that urge to breathe, you breathe. And if you take too big of a gasp, if you cannot take a normal breath after that, then you've held on too long. Okay, so it's that's where personally I'm not a big fan of the controlled pause because it takes some skill to figure out how to get that. I personally use the controlled exhale, which is ultimately the long exhale. You'll take as deep and as full of a breath as possible, and you exhale it through your nose. And if at any time your exhale is interrupted, if at any time you swallow, or if at any time you're out of air, you take that number and that is your exhale number. Now, these 2 scales have different numbers associated with them. So the question is, when should I take my controlled pause test? And ultimately, when should I test my CO2 tolerance? And in his comment, he was talking about how he's got a pretty active job and all this other stuff. Well, okay. So the best way to do it is whenever you do it at the same time of day. And typically we do it first thing in the morning before we eat anything. Now, the reason for that is whenever you eat something, it will change the CO2 production in your cells, especially if you eat something that has carbohydrates in it. So the more carbohydrates and sugars you eat, the more CO2 you produce, which doesn't necessarily affect your CO2 tolerance. But hey, if my tolerance is here and I'm producing CO2 slow, well, it's going to take a while for me to get up to that tolerance. But if I'm producing CO2 really quickly, well, I'll get there really fast. So you want to try to do your controlled pause away from a meal. Now, you don't have to be hungry, but try to avoid taking a controlled pause at least an hour or so after you eat meals. And if you eat a lot of carbohydrates that day or a lot of sugars that day, you can count on having a lower CO2 tolerance score, not necessarily indicative of your CO2 tolerance. So we want to know what our CO2 tolerance is. And ultimately, the nice thing is if you've slept like the average person generally sleeps, you've had an 8-hour fast or somewhere around that whenever you wake up in the morning. So your blood sugar and all this stuff is about the same. So you can take that in the morning before you get up. I tend to take it right as soon as I get up. I plop down out. I have a yoga mat right next to my bed. I plop down there every single morning. Sometimes I take my CO2 tolerance. Sometimes I don't. But when I do, it's the first thing I do. Never take your CO2 tolerance after doing super ventilation or heavy hyperventilative breath work. Always take your CO2 tolerance before something like that, because you're not going to get an accurate score. So those are some things to think about whenever it comes to taking your CO2 tolerance, checking your CO2 tolerance, whether it is with the controlled exhale or whether it is with the controlled pause. I want to thank you for that question. All right, next question. Okay, here we go. So let's see. Carl says, after my 20 minutes meditations, I usually take a few minutes before moving on with my day. Lately, I've been doing 4-7-8 breath, also known as Cadence of Bliss, if you've read my book, to break the meditation. Any thoughts or recommendations on a protocol from coming out of meditation different from, and would it be different for morning versus night? That's a great question. So when it comes to the language of breath, okay, so this is my philosophy behind all breath work, is the language of breath now. Ultimately, it always depends on what it is you want to do next. What are you getting out of? What are you getting into? So if you've had a great meditation, that's fantastic. But what are you doing next? And do you want, how much of that meditation can you take with you? That peace, that calm after your session. So what that means is you have to kind of experiment. I personally think 4-7-8 breathing after a 20-minute meditation, a regular sit, as we might say, I love that. I absolutely love that, because for me, if I'm meditating and I go directly into something that's maybe more active, something that's more hyperventilative. Hey, Ian, nice to see you here. If I go into something that's really active after sitting for 20 minutes in a meditation, that might take me out of that zen that I've been able to accomplish by meditating into maybe a really awesome place, but maybe I don't want that. Maybe that's not exactly what I want. 4-7-8 breathing is such a perfect technique for almost any time of the day, because it's not something that is going to amp you up, but at the same time, it gives you the happy joys, as we like to say. I teach 4-7-8 breathing. Yesterday, I was at the drug rehab clinic and I was teaching breath work. I always teach 4-7-8 breathing to recovering addicts. And that is, I know it might seem different from like a person who's doing meditation, but let me stay with me. Okay. The reason I do that is because they want to feel good, right? They're having a difficult time feeling good because, hey, this thing I've been dependent on for so long to feel normal and to feel good, it's not there. I want to feel good. I know that my usual actions are not healthy and I'm trying to kick those habits. So, okay, how can I feel good? But the other thing is, oftentimes they're in a state of high autonomic arousal and high dopamine. So what that means is, oftentimes we have a person who is high anxiety, but they want to feel good. So sometimes, a lot of times a person would say, well, hey man, just sit down, do some like Wim Hof or do some Vivation or do something that would be super ventilation, like a hyperventilation style. And for a lot of people, they find that that's too much too fast. They need something that's not going to amp them up any more than they already are. And they need something, though, that's going to make them feel good. So 4-7-8 breathing is something I oftentimes will say that's a good one. And you only need to do 4 to 8 repetitions, and then you're golden. So coming out of a meditation, you typically, the average person meditates because they're trying to calm down or trying to take with them the calm that they find in meditation. So if I'm trying to preserve that, and I'm trying to also have a nice way of exiting a meditation, 4-7-8 would be one of my favorites. Now, on the other hand, if you're like me, and if I do a morning meditation, the reason why I don't really do morning meditations anymore is simply because I find that I have a hard time. I have a hard time waking up. Like like I'll do a morning meditation and then I'm so calm, so relaxed that I have it's like I feel like I need coffee or something after that. Well, in that case, but maybe that's your only time to meditate. Maybe it's just in the morning, and maybe that's an issue you have. Well, there are techniques that I would say would be good for helping you to get some more energy. Some people find superventilation or hyperventilative style techniques, circular breathing, things that we might consider, getting that high on your own supply, or there's a lot of different techniques that use that kind of breathing, like Sudarshan Kriya and things of that nature. Some people will say, you know what, I actually feel really calm. I've had a lot of people say I have a hard time not falling asleep after I do one of those. Well, this all speaks to the underlying issue, which is you've got to figure out what is going to be best for you by experimenting. However, having said that, what would I recommend? If I had a client that came to me like this, my first question would be, when do you meditate? Now, it says in your email or in your text that it's morning and night, and that's fantastic. And 4-7-8 breathing is perfect for both. The nice thing is 4-7-8 breathing is great before you go to bed. It's also great in the morning. It's also great in the afternoon. There's no bad time to do 4-7-8. So if you're looking for something that's kind of a golden technique, I've always loved that. I personally myself would experiment. Okay. So I would experiment with sniff, sniff, poo in the morning. Okay. And that's a technique, if you want to practice it a little bit. So ultimately, sniff, sniff, poo, you're going to inhale to about 70% full lungs, and then you're going to cap it off with an absolutely full lung, and then you're going to say poo at the end. So it goes like this. Now, some people do this before doing a meditation because it can be very blissful. It can help to shut down some of that, what we might call the monkey mind, and it can make you feel good, and it can be something that can help start a session. But for me, I like to do that, and then maybe I will end with a full lung apnea. And then maybe I would take an exhale, making some sounds. If you're in the breath tribe, we're going to be doing this. First of all, just so everybody knows, if you're not in the breath tribe, in the next hour, if you join the breath tribe now, okay, go to jessekumar.com or go to patreon.com/Midwestern Method. I still haven't changed that. I need to change that, but it's still technically called that. If you go to those and you join the Patreon club, in the next hour, we're going to do our group session on Zoom, so you can join us. So you're invited. All you got to do is join the Patreon club. It's only $5. So if all you got was the guided session, I think that would be, I think that in itself is worth it. But then you also get access to my full catalog of guided sessions. Thank you, Ian. Thank you. I appreciate that. And maybe I'll get to the sauna here in a minute, because I think you're in that tier as well. So I'm going to cheers again. The only downside to mud water is that you have to constantly stir it up and shake it around because it's a suspension. It doesn't really dissolve perfectly. But of course you are. Of course you are, Ian. That's what I thought. Anyway, all right, here we go. So I would do sniff, sniff, poo in the mornings, and I might do a full lung apnea at the end. And then I would let it go with a nice, and then I would go about my day. Then I would go about just enjoying my life, enjoying the rest of the day. So that's my advice for your morning. Now, the evening, I would say 4-7-8 is going to be your best bet, really. 4-7-8 after a meditation session, before you go to bed. You don't want to activate. You don't want to get all hyped up. So I would say that would be something that I would do. So thank you so much for the question. Keep meditating. It's so good. Like that's the one of the things about meditation is like, there's no downside to it. Like there's only a cost of time. That's it. Okay. Yaver, he said, I've had a bit of doing some active breathings like Kapalabhati and Kapalabhati and Bhastrika. I scrunch up my face a bit. Hey, we've all scrunched our face doing breath work. He says his eyebrows, his nose, and his mouth kind of scrunch up. He says, I think this helps me to breathe a bit more sharply and quickly. He said, recently I heard a bit more detailed guidelines for Kapalabhati, suggesting to completely relax your face while doing the practice. So I am wondering about my habit of making fierce. I like how you use that, fierce faces, and what impact that has. Okay, so it depends on what you're doing. Now, Kapalabhati comes from the pranayama tradition of breath work. In the world of breath work, pranayama practitioners are considered to be the perfectionists of breath work. Now, what does that mean? There is a way to sit. There is a way to have your face. There is always there's a wrong way and a right way to hold your hands. There are right and wrong ways to do just about everything, depending on the master that you're learning it from. And what's interesting is that while you can, you can read a lot about the instructions of pranayama, when you go from one master to the next, you'll occasionally have it told to you in a different way, one way than another way. And I have had many people teach me over the years, and they're masters. I mean, they are people that are really good. And I'm like, well, that's funny. So and so, who was, a master at pranayama, taught me to do it this way. Nope, nope, nope. You don't do it that way. I mean, and it is this way. And so that's a terrible accent, I guess. But the point is, you'll hear slight variations from different people. And I will say, so there's that. The other thing is that pranayama typically, like I said, has a right and a wrong way to do every aspect of the practice. Now, when it comes to pranayama as we practice it in westernized breath work, okay, so this would be me. Okay, so I am not a teacher of pranayama. I am a student of pranayama. I don't go out there and teach traditional pranayama. So when you're practicing Kapalabhati or Bhastrika, for me, at least in my practice and the practice of my clients, we're looking for what is it that we're going to get out of this. Are we, we're not looking to necessarily practice something just for the sake of practicing it like a correct way. And again, there's a lot of different variations on what the correct way might be. We're looking to see, okay, what is the purpose behind my practice? What is it that I'm looking to achieve? And so oftentimes, Kapalabhati is something that is used to strengthen your primary exhalation muscles, so your abdominals. Other times, people use this technique for to increase energy. And then still other people use it as sort of a mild superventilative technique to increase their ability to improve overall meditation and to find peace in their minds. It's also known as skull shining for that reason. You get this peaceful, blissful feeling. And and so it depends on what you're going for. Now, I'm going to give you my personal advice on this. And I've given you, I guess, a real preamble because I'm not trying to argue with whoever told you that about your face. Ultimately, the most important thing for most people's practice with that technique is control in the abdomen, is control and maintaining relaxation throughout all of yourself. So every part of you, except for that contraction. Okay. So what that means is, yes, I mean, if you can relax your face, relax your face. But if you struggle to relax your face, or if relaxing your face gets in the way of you breathing, right? If it impedes your breathing, or if it causes you discomfort, then don't worry about it. Okay. Scrunch that face up if you need to. If having a relaxed face causes you discomfort, or if it gets in the way of you breathing with control. Okay. And then enjoy Kapalabhati because it's one of my favorite techniques. And if you're in the breath club, you know that because I add it every other month almost. I'll have some element of Kapalabhati. Maybe we'll do a little bit today in our guided session. If we do, I'll have to get off of this. I got you on a desk in my my studio right now. I'll have to move some stuff around. We'll do some of that. But ultimately, that is my answer. And that's my best advice to you. All right, we got more questions. Let's see here. Let's take, I know Ian had a question about sauna before I forget. So, okay, talking about breath work in the sauna. So the danger of some breath works in a sauna is that the sauna is incredibly dry. And if you're in the $10 tier, one of my very first tips of the month, okay, $10 tier or higher, right? You get access to my monthly breath tip, where I give you tips to get more out of your breathwork practice, whatever it might be. So one of those tips, one of the very first tips was you really do need to think about the humidity of the air. The air quality matters. There's so many people that will practice breath work, and don't get me wrong, wherever you are is the right place to practice breath work. But if you can clean up the air, that's better. That's better because I mean you're dealing with whatever's in the air. In a sauna, it's incredibly dry, and incredibly dry air can really mess with your sinuses. And if you're in the breath club, you know that sinus breathing. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of breathing through the nose only. Okay, just only breathing through the nose. And you can really mess your sinuses up if you breathe too much arid air, and especially if you breathe it really quickly, because your sinuses don't, those turbinates in your sinuses, they don't have enough time to humidify the air if it's super dry. So what you'll want to do is in the sauna, my best advice is breathing calm and relaxed, just like breathing if you were in an ice bath. Calm and relaxed, nothing heavy, especially, and don't breathe in and out through your mouth. Avoid mouth breathing in a sauna. Nasal breathing only. Allow those inhales to be nice and slow on the way in, and exhale through the nose as well. So one of the things, especially in an arid environment, that makes nasal exhalations so important is that when you exhale through the mouth, you exhale 40% more of your water than when you exhale through the nose. And in addition to that, if you're inhaling through the nose and you're exhaling through the mouth, which isn't always bad, but we're thinking sauna here, we're thinking dry air with Ian's question. If that's the case, you're going to dry this out, and then you won't even return some of that moisture to your sinuses with your exhale. Because if you're inhaling and then you're exhaling, it's dry this out and then send all the water out here. Dry it out, send the water out. Dry it out, send the water out. So you're going to inflame your sinuses and you're going to lose a lot more water. So in the sauna, in and out through the nose only, slow, controlled breathing. Now, if you say, hey, you know what, I kind of want to get some happy joy, some good feelings, 4, 7, 8 breathing. That's the one to do. In a sauna, in an ice bath, you could probably do some, depending on the humidity of the air, you could do some more active breathing. But nothing that's going to make you feel drowsy or pass out, because you could drown in an ice bath. But that's the best way to do it. All right. Hey, you are very welcome, Ian. Let's see here. A Discord server, says Darth. That's a great idea. What I need to do is figure out how to do that. Maybe that's showing my age. I know people who have Discord servers. I just I've never messed with Discord at all. And so I am unfamiliar with that platform. And maybe I'll have to get on that. I'll get one of my assistants, somebody on Team Coomer. I'm sure. Actually, I know for a fact who I'm going to talk to now, but I overwork him. The problem is I overwork my editor. He's also kind of like, yes, Papa Geek has mentioned it before. People have mentioned it before. It's like I will say this though. I am probably going to do Discord before I figure out how to translate Fahrenheit to Celsius, so so okay. All right. Well, that is something I'm going to do then. All right. You have my word on it. Now, let me tell you this right now. I probably won't be able to do a Discord until the end of this year. And the reason for that is is because every single moment that I'm not doing this, what I'm doing right now, I'm working on my next book. So my current book that I'm working on is The Language of Breath. It is a deep dive. It takes it. It's. I'm really proud of where it's going. So I've been working on that. Jesse Boomer. Oh my God. Oh my God, Papa Geek. I'm almost a millennial. I think, okay, so we're going to divert for just a minute because I need to defend my honor here as I'm being assailed. So I was born in the end of 1980. And I guess between 1980 and 1983, that's like the cutoff years for like Generation X and Millennial. So I'm somewhere in there. I don't know. But yeah, maybe I'm a boomer when it comes to this. All right. Thank you for being patient with me, guys. I do also want you to know that I just recently signed up with an app. I've for the longest time apps they always come to me. They're like, "Hey, we want you to represent our app. Hey, we've got a great app that we'd love to be affiliated with you." And I don't really like apps. And I personally, I think that apps typically they cheapen breath work. They make it seem as that all that there is to breath work is you breathe in for this, hold for this, and so I don't really like apps. However, I recently signed up a group of breath workers, so we're all going together. It's a real cool collaboration amongst a lot of really great breath workers from around the world, and we're creating an app called the Breath Space. So that's going to be coming out in November. And if you're on my email list, you're going to get first access to that. You're going to get two. I think it's either one or I forget exactly. I forget the deal that you'll get, but you get first access if you're on my email list or if you're in my Patreon club. So that's going to be a thing that's coming out soon. But hey, thank you so much, Darth and Papa Geek. You've sent me beer and candy. How mad can I be at you poking fun at me? All right. Oh, you're in the gray area too, Dana? Well, I'm glad I'm not alone. Let's see. Okay, we got more questions, and then I've got to lead some breath work here in a minute. If you haven't joined the Breath Tribe, head over to jessecoomer.com, and we're going to get started here at the next hour, and it's on Zoom. We have people from all around the world. It's a really awesome thing, and today we're going to do some awesome breath work, and we're going to go super, super deep today because why not? Let's see here. Okay, and we did this one, and we did this one. Okay, here's a cool one. Breath work for children. Okay. So one of our members reached out and he said, "Hey, I know of a child that she's 2 years old and she's got some of the starting parts of asthma. Are there breathing techniques that she can do to help with that?" Now, the issue here is not that there are not breathing techniques, right? Because there are fantastic breathing techniques that you can use. Asthma is one of these things where one of the most common things when I meet other breath workers, I didn't have asthma. I had drug addiction and terrible allergies and a completely terrible outlook on life and anxiety and I had a lot of other things. But you'll meet a lot of breath workers out there that started off because they were trying to fix their asthma, and breath work was the thing that helped them get off all their asthma medications, and they became breath workers. It's very common amongst the breath work world. And so the thing is, so breath work is a fantastic tool to fight asthma, to cure asthma, to make it something that you never have to think about anymore because you practice controlled breathing. But for a 2-year-old, they're a bit young, right? Kids, it's really difficult for kids to see the benefit of breath work because they're like, what now this is for many reasons. One is that kids typically don't understand anxiety and stress in the same way that we do as adults. You have to understand our conscious mind it is just starting to kind of grow and develop early on like that. So how we interpret our experiences, it changes over our lifetimes. However, if you know of a little one who's having some issues with breathing, uh, they're, depending on their level of being able to understand how this works. Yeah, Papa Geek says he's got a 6-year-old sniff, sniff, poo. Exactly. That's actually what I've got my son doing. We call it Darth Vader breathing too. We'll do a where it's like, right? We make the sound. He likes Star Wars, but sniff, sniff, poo is fantastic. It depends. But ultimately, what we want to try to do is help young people to avoid becoming over breathers. Have fun with your breath, understand that it's something you control and that it affects your emotional state, it affects your autonomic state. Those are important things too. But at the very least, let's try to help you be a functional breather. Now, the reason for that is that, most of us develop dysfunction as we get older. So, for instance, we develop dysfunction in our movement patterns as we get older because we sit in chairs, we scrunch up in desks, in offices, we sit in cars for long periods of time, airplanes. This is how I sit. Anytime I fly, I don't know how it is in other countries. I've only flown in Europe a few times, but like in the United States, this is flying for me, right? Can anybody relate to that? It's like I have to kind of sit like this. And it might be an all-day flight. Maybe I'm flying to Hawaii or flying to California or something like that. It's just like this. No, coffee. Yeah, I'll have some coffee. Yeah. And then you're kind of you've got your drink and then like whatever like garbage they gave you to snack on, but you're so bored, you're like, fine, I'll just eat garbage. I don't know. Anyway, that's just my experience. The thing is, we develop these breathing dysfunctions over time. And the longer we can help a child avoid those breathing dysfunctions, especially mouth breathing, the better they're going to be able to deal with the stresses of life. Now, there's a lot of research out there right now to show just how difficult these past few years have been, not just on adults, but also on kids. And I can tell my son, I mean, as much as we try, as hard as we work to try to help a child feel safe, I don't, my son went to school, and for the first 2 years of going to school, he had to wear a mask all day long, right? And I mean, there's certain fears that come with that. There's certain, and I'm not going to make this in. Please don't make comments about that. I do not want to turn this into that kind of thing. The conversation. And that's not the reason I brought this up. But the point is, if we can help kids deal with stress younger, the longer it is until they develop those dysfunctions, if they ever do. And we know that functional breathing helps us deal with stress. The better we are at breathing, the more functional our breathing is, the less of an impact that stress is going to have on us because we're not working against ourselves. Again, this is all in my online course, The Language of Breath. And you can find out all about how to check your breathing for dysfunctions. You can check all those things out. If you're at the Patreon Club, I'm about to activate a coupon code for $50 off. And it's the same coupon code as before, but the bigger discount from the early release has expired. So, but we're still going to have a cool discount in the Patreon Club. But ultimately, that is the thing that I would recommend for kids. Functional breathing. Let's try to preserve what Mother Nature imbibed in or embedded in us when we were born, which is functional, healthy breathing as long as possible. And maybe, just maybe, they won't get as dysfunctional with their breath as I know I did. I mean, if your kid is constantly going around saying, no, nose, you can do that. You can do that if you want to, but don't let them run around and go. They can breathe through their nose. All right. That's my soapbox. Sniff, sniff, poo is fantastic also. And you talk about a great way to deal with stress. That's fantastic. Let's see here. Just checking through. Okay. Last question. I've got a question. It talked about cold training. So you can ask me anything in this, in the Patreon club. It is a breath club, but hey, we'll talk about what you want to talk about. I got a guy who he emailed me. I only have so much time now, so I can't go on and on. So got to get to the point. Had a guy email me, and he said that he had a really awesome ice bath. And he gave me the brand name. I'm not going to say the brand name, but it was one of the brand name, those really nice ice baths. And he said he got to the point where he was doing right above freezing, 36 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think that's 2 degrees Celsius. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's true. Anyway, it's got to be around there. So 36 degrees Fahrenheit is what he's doing, which I think is 2 degrees Celsius. And he says now his wife wants to do it, but she can't quite handle that cold. So he's going to crank up the temperature to right around 50 degrees, which I think is something in Celsius. And okay. I know it's not 4, but what is it? What is 50 degrees? Okay. Hey, I'm going to find out. Here we go. I'm going to ask my second brain. 50 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius.
32 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 0.
50 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius.
50 degrees
10
Fahrenheit
Celsius
is equivalent to 10 degrees.
Yes. You love Papa Geek's just smiling. He just loves to see me like, what am I? I don't know if I'm ever going to learn. I tried. Anyway, so he's going to go to 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit for his wife. And here's the thing, as a guy who's been trying to get his wife to take cold baths, like ice baths and stuff for a long time, I'm envious of this guy. My wife will take cold showers, but it stops at a certain point too. And hey, it is what it is. You can only lead them to water. You can't make it cold, right? So, he said, I'm going to crank up the temperature for my wife. Am I going to lose my cold tolerance? Is my adaptation going to go away? And he's also saying, what would you recommend as far as a protocol? I've been spending about 2 to 3 minutes in 36 degree water. What would that translate to in the 50 degree water? Well, here's the answer. First of all, you will lose some of your cold adaptation. Not a lot. But the next time you get in 36 degree water, it's going to be like, oh, wow, yes, I remember this, but it's going to feel a little bit more challenging than it does today. Okay. The intensity is the thing that will atrophy a little bit. But if you continue to practice ice bathing or cold exposure training, it's not like it's going to go away. And what you can count on is if you spend in a 50 degree temperature at least 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to get a very similar cold exposure. Now, I give you all of those details in my ebook, A Practical Guide to Cold Training, and that's on my website, jessecoomer.com. If you're looking for my recommendations for how to train, how to get deeper into the cold, this is all my own personal philosophy from my own personal work and from interviewing. Like, for instance, right now I've got an interview in there from the first person who swam an ice mile in the Antarctic Ocean. And then my next update is going to be, it's going to include an interview with Joseph Cobrel, who beat Wim Hof's record twice. And then somebody beat his record, but I think he's going to try to get the record again. Like, there's a whole world of there's a whole world of cold exposure that is just really exciting. And a lot of different methods, a lot of different ways of looking at how this works, but it's all good. Now, you don't need to break any world records to get all the benefits of cold training. Typically 2 to 5 minutes is all you need. And I'm in the process of making a YouTube video about the connection between cold training and killing cancer. Yes, there is a positive connection, a connection between people who take cold showers. You don't have to take an ice bath, but cold exposure therapy and the elimination of cancers and the prevention of the growth of cancers. I'm really excited about it. I'm not going to give a lot of details now, and I'm still double checking with some scientists that I know to make sure I understand it, so that whenever I explain it to you, I'm not saying something stupid, because I don't like to say stupid things, except for if it has to do with translating Fahrenheit to Celsius. Then I'm just like, I have no pride at that point. Guys, in about 10 minutes, our Breath Tribe is going to start our monthly guided breath session, our group session. I would invite you, if you haven't joined the Breath Club, $5 gets you in, and you just click on the link and then you'll get to go to the Zoom with us. I see a lot of people. I know you're in the Breath Club, and so I'm excited to see you today if you can make it in the next hour. Today, we're going to be doing some mixed techniques. So if you're going to be here for that, be in a comfortable place, wear some comfortable clothes, and get ready to feel really good. And we're going to have just overall a really good time. But you know that if you've been to one of our sessions. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I want to thank everybody that's in the $20 tier that asks questions. I was able to get to everybody's question today, and I'm really happy that I had so many great, diverse questions from all over the place. If you'd like to join the Breath Club, it's only $5 to join, and that gets you access to my complete catalog of guided breath sessions, of varieties of styles and techniques. And it also gets you into our monthly guided group session, which we're about to have now. There are higher tiers. At the higher tiers, you can get access to my monthly breath tip, and you can get access to exactly what you've seen today. You can ask me questions, and I give you detailed answers as to my opinions, my research, my expertise on that topic. You also get access to all kinds of discounts that the average person doesn't get access to. And there is going to be a new merch item coming out. Some of you guys have already noticed that I have now a Language of Breath t-shirt, which the front of the t-shirt is this, the back of the t-shirt is this, painted by an amazing artist, and it makes a really awesome t-shirt. I just sent, if you ordered one recently, I just sent those out today, so you can expect those soon. But I'm also going to be having an exclusive t-shirt just for the Patreon Breath Club, and that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. And I have a painting I'm going to show you. This right here. And another one. This one right here. For the love of your nose, my friends. So we're going to have t-shirts, and then if you want, we might do a hoodie option as well. I like hoodies. I'm a hoodie kind of guy. In the wintertime, you'll never not see me wearing a hoodie pretty much. I think they're really comfortable, and I'm a hoodie kind of guy. So we might do a hoodie as well. Anyway, guys, there's lots to look forward to. I'm so thankful for this amazing tribe. And you really make my work really possible. It's especially helpful for all the times whenever I'm not going to charge people. Like, for instance, there's a lot of times I just don't charge because it's a group that needs it, but there's no way they could pay for it. And so I feel like I can do those types of events and those types of workshops and things because of this group. And you make that possible. So I appreciate it. So look for me on what was it? What am I getting on Discord? Look for me on Discord soon. And guys, I'll see everybody in the Breath Club in the next, I guess, looks like 5 minutes for breath work. So go get a drink, go pee, and I'll see you in a minute. Bye-bye.